My name is Ellie Mae Ronan, 29 years old. I got dressed twice on the morning of my baby shower, not because I couldn't decide, though the pale blue looked gentler than the emerald, but because zippers and buttons are slower when you're stalling. Every time I smoothed a hem, I told myself the same lie. They'll be late, but they'll come. Mom would sweep in with too bright lipstick and a compliment that somehow landed back on her. Dad would hover by the food with that "I hate parties" face he thinks is charming. Amber would make it about her. She always finds a way. By noon, the townhouse was all soft color and careful hope. Tyler had helped blow balloons last night until he got lightheaded, and we had to sit on the kitchen floor and laugh at nothing. Our friends arrived carrying flowers, gift bags, a stack of baby books with crooked post-its sticking out like feathers. Someone taped a string of tiny onesies across the window so sunlight haloed them. The cupcakes had lemon frosting. The hand-poured candles smelled like linen. On a table in the corner, a glass frame read, "Welcome, baby. You are already loved." I kept a smile on because I know how to be a good host even when I'm an aching person. People touched my belly and told me I looked radiant. Inside, I felt like a window with a crack running from top to bottom. Still standing, but one good slam away from shattering. At 1:07, I texted Mom a heart and the address again. At 1:41, I walked into the hallway and stared at the door like staring could make a knob turn. At 2:12, my phone buzzed. No caption, just a photo. Mom, Dad, and Amber on a winery patio. Sunlight on glass, wine flights lined in front of them like a chorus. Amber in oversized sunglasses, smiling with her whole face. Mom's grin like a trophy. Dad squinting into the good life. The noise around me thinned to a bell tone. For a second, I couldn't hear the room at all. It was just me and the rectangle of proof in my hand. I typed, "Did you forget what today is?" 4 minutes passed, long enough to fold an entire life. Then Mom replied, "Amber's had a hard year. She needed this. She's the real daughter anyway. You'll be fine." Something didn't crack. It broke, the way a bone breaks when it's already stressed to a hairline and then you step down wrong. I sat on the edge of my own party and counted bills in my head the way other people count their breaths. The mortgage top-ups, the temporary cell plan that somehow still had 3 lines, the gap payments for their insurance, the $3,000 Amber stipend that hit like clockwork on the 5th because she was always between changes, the property tax shortfall I covered last spring, the therapy invoices, the vet bills for a dog I've never met because he's family too. Tyler stood beside me without asking questions. He handed me water, steadied me with a palm on my shoulder blade. I think he knew before I did. This wasn't a disappointment. This was a pivot, a world tilting and deciding to stay that way. When the last guest left and the ribbons were a mess on the floor, we sat on the couch in silence that wasn't empty. "What now?" he asked. I looked at the framed sign from the book table, "You are already loved," and felt something like grief for the girl who kept trying to earn that sentence. "One thing," I said, "consequences coming." Sleep and I aren't on speaking terms lately, but that night I didn't even pretend to try. At 9:30 the next morning, my phone chimed a different tone. Bank alert. Attempted transfer $2,000 from L. Ronan Business Checking. Amber R. Pending 2-factor approval. The screen blurred. I didn't blink. I hadn't authorized anything. The only person who ever had access to my QuickBooks when I was building the company on takeout containers and hope was my mother. I never removed her login. I didn't think I had to. I froze. Not my face. My accounts. Business. Personal. Every card and line. I changed passwords. I added hardware keys. I turned on alerts so aggressive they'd wake a graveyard. Tyler moved in sync with me, pulling the file box, flipping to the tab we'd labeled Finance. Shared back when we thought shared meant generosity instead of vulnerability. He didn't say "I told you." He said "I've got your back," and I believed him. At 11:45, the calls started. Mom, then Amber, then Dad, then Amber again, like persistence could rewire a boundary. 8 missed calls in an hour. No voicemails, just panic tapping at the edges. I let the silence ring. That kind of silence hits different when you've built a life on answering early. I didn't start with the fireworks. I started with the matches. I opened the grocery delivery account I'd created for my parents 2 years ago after Dad called from the store with a card decline and a voice like a wound. It was under my name, tied to my business Amex. Paused. I scrolled to the recurring transfer to Amber, $3,000 on the 5th, and hovered over delete. I didn't delete it. I hit pause because I wanted her to feel the stop. I changed the Amazon Prime password and turned off connected devices. Somewhere, an old Western froze mid-shootout. Spotify. Family. Every name gone but mine and Tyler's. The cell plan. I moved my number to a personal account and left the rest to evaporate. I didn't rage. I clicked. That night I told Tyler I needed to wipe the slate. He disappeared into his office and came back with a yellow legal pad, sat cross-legged on the carpet, and said, "Tell me everything." It turns out everything can fit on 27 lines, if you're honest. We wrote until midnight. We didn't call it a ledger. We called it a map of how I lost myself. The next day, the fallout tried on disguises. Mom left a voicemail like we'd spoken yesterday about normal things. "Hi, sweetie, just checking in. Love you," Amber texted. "Hey, something weird happened with the account." I wrote back, "I checked. It was weird." Uncle Mark called to say, "Family sticks together," which he also says before asking for silent stakes in gyms that don't exist. I blocked him. Aunt Rachel texted Tyler instead of me to suggest my hormones were making me dramatic. Tyler handed me the phone. "Say the word." I didn't. I just blocked her. By afternoon, Amber's Instagram story was a black square with white font like a digital headstone. Some people think money gives them permission to control everyone. Newsflash: family isn't a bank. That one almost made me laugh. I screenshot it and put it in a new folder named Narratives, because on some level I understood this wasn't just about money. This was about the story she needed to tell so she could live with herself. That weekend, Tyler drove us 2 hours north to a cabin with no Wi-Fi and pancakes that tasted like camp. He packed the first baby book we ever bought and a Polaroid camera with 3 shots left. We made bad syrup better by laughing at it. For 48 hours, Unreachable was a balm. When we got home Sunday night, the inbox waited with one new email from Dad. Subject: "Let's fix this." Body: "You're going to regret this, Ellie." I didn't reply. I didn't forward it. I printed it, slid it into a fresh manila folder, and highlighted the sentence in red. This wasn't a family problem anymore. It was a boundary problem, and I was finally treating it like one. Later, Amber called. I let it ring while I folded onesies that still smelled like the drawer. Her voicemail tried on sincerity like a sweater in a store mirror. "I didn't know they were skipping your shower till last minute. I thought you were fine. I mean, it's just a party. You're overreacting." Just a party. I stared at the cloth in my hands and understood that I had trained them not to feel the cost of anything. I had held the weight for so long they thought gravity was a choice. The next morning, I opened a new tab, Bank Fraud, and filed a report. The device fingerprint on the attempted transfer matched Mom's IP. They didn't say it outright. They didn't have to. I made a paper trail because love without records had left me with stories I couldn't prove. Tyler didn't crowd me. He built a spreadsheet with 2 tidy columns, active, while I'm terminated, and started turning red into a color I could live with. By noon, everything we needed gone was gone. Somewhere in the middle of all that, a thought slid into place so cleanly it didn't even hurt. There would be no fixing. There would be only forward. The fraud department didn't accuse my mother out loud. They didn't need to. The device we see is consistent with a previously authorized login from several years back, the analyst said, careful as glass. It originated from the same IP range. She paused. We've flagged it and blocked further attempts. I thanked her and ended the call, then sat with my phone in my lap, my thumb hovering like it could rewind the life that made that sentence possible. Across the table, Tyler slid a mug toward me. "Drink," he said, "then list." We built the list like a confession. Every dollar I'd poured into the bottomless pit of "We need you." Amber stipend, $3,000. Month paused. Parents' grocery auto delivery, off. Amazon Prime, password rotated, devices deauthorized. Spotify family, collapsed to 2. Cell plan, numbers ported out, theirs left to expire. Insurance gap payments ceased, notice sent. Property tax shortfall last year recorded, no repeat. Vet bills, therapy copays, Uber gift cards terminated. 27 lines in all, some tiny, some humiliating in scale. Tyler totaled it and whistled low. This could be a down payment on a house, he said, or college. He didn't say for who. My phone lit with a parade of names I didn't owe. Uncle Mark, Aunt Rachel, one of Dad's friends from the golf course, a cousin who only ever texts when Amber is too embarrassed to. The messages were rehearsed. You've changed. Hormones. Family sticks together. We're all worried about you. I blocked them like a habit I should have learned years ago. Amber's story sprouted replies from strangers who only knew the melodrama version. Some people think having money gives them the right to control everyone. I didn't respond. I screenshotted and filed under narratives next to Dad's. You'll regret this email, the way you keep a record of a storm's path even after the sky turns blue. By lunchtime, I was exhausted in the way people get when they redraft their lives in a single morning. Tyler didn't ask for a break. He ordered one. We drove to the tiny diner on the corner and ate pancakes that tasted like they were pretending to be cake. And for 20 minutes, I felt a flicker of normal like a visitor who might stay. Back home, I opened a new browser tab and typed formal disassociation with relatives, a phrase I didn't know existed until our accountant mentioned it during a tax scare when Mom forgot to file something big. The law had a shape for this. It was a relief to borrow it. I filed the paperwork that officially documented that I was not financially tied to them. I removed Mom and Dad as emergency contacts. I updated my will. Boundaries, it turns out, also have forms. At 3, a box arrived on the porch. No return address, but the handwriting slid across the label in a loop I'd seen on every birthday card since I was 10. Mom. Inside, our childhood photo album, the one she'd claimed she lost in a movie. Taped to the cover, a note. Family doesn't throw family away. I didn't open it. I put the box in the hall closet and shut the door. By 5, Amber tried a different angle. She texted, "Hey, account glitch? Can you check?" I typed, "I checked." It was weird. No reply. That night, the ledger sat on the coffee table like a new kind of mirror. I ran my finger down the columns and felt a slow heat rise, the kind that isn't anger so much as awareness. Tyler sat beside me, knee touching mine, saying nothing, which was the best thing he could say. The next morning, the quiet broke in a new register. "Hey," Tyler called from his office, voice tight. "Did you apply for a loan in Arizona?" I laughed, too quickly. He forwarded the email. Gretchen from a Tempe credit union, just confirming a cosigner authorization. My name, my address, my social security number, my digital signature, sloppy enough to be insulting. Primary applicant, Greg Ronan. My father. The floor tipped. I dialed the credit union and went straight to fraud. They had a copy of the application. They had an IP address. It matched the house in Scottsdale where my parents live. I stayed on the phone and opened a new tab, Identity Theft Resource Center, and followed the steps. Freeze credit. Notify bureaus. File police report. The officer who took the statement asked if I wanted to press charges. I looked at my belly, felt the child inside roll like a tide, and wanted to say no, because the ghost of the girl I'd been still wanted to keep the peace. Tyler's voice cut through that fog. File it. By noon, the practicalities were done. That should have made me feel safe. It made me feel legal, which isn't the same thing. At 2, my phone buzzed again. Unknown number. Amber. You really reported Dad? Are you insane? He's your father. He was just trying to help Mom with the bills. I typed back, he was a father. Then deleted and wrote, not anymore. The flood began. Paragraphs of accusation. The words jealous, vindictive, cold, thrown like dishes. I read them until my eyes watered, not from sadness, but from the itch of realizing none of it was original. It was a chorus she'd been taught to sing before she knew the melody. Then a line that pinned it all to the wall like a specimen. Mom says she only took money because you owe her for everything she did for you growing up. Oh. The entitlement wasn't a symptom. It was the disease. My phone buzzed again. Jess, Mom's cousin I hadn't heard from since Amber's last almost wedding. Ellie, I think you should see this. Screenshots. Mom to another relative. If Ellie ever cuts Amber off, we'll just say she's having a pregnancy breakdown. Everyone will side with us. She's too emotional to fight it. Another where Amber bragged to a friend. I can always get money out of her. Ellie hates confrontation. I didn't finish reading. I handed the phone to Tyler like it was hot. I'm done talking. He nodded once. That was his war cry. Tyler doesn't storm rooms. He closes doors quietly so they don't slam again. He sat at his desk with no music and the kind of focus people confuse with coldness. He opened our shared folder and began pulling 5 years of bank records into a new stack. He itemized. He appended. He asked our attorney for a cease and desist addressed to all three, Mom, Dad, Amber, warning that further attempts to access my finances would be met with criminal charges. He requested a formal affidavit compiling $170,000 of provable support. We weren't asking for repayment. We were writing the history before someone else sold a novel of it. Then he did something I wouldn't have. He called Dad. I watched him use my phone. I listened to the way his voice carried no heat, just light. We know what you did. Documents are filed. You'll get letters this week. If you try anything else, our next conversation will be in court. He hung up like ending a meeting. 3 hours later, Mom called. I let it go to voicemail. Her crying was cinematic, wet and loud, and only ever for an audience. She said she didn't know what Dad had done. She said she never wanted it to get this bad. She said, "We're family, Ellie." She never said she was sorry. Amber pivoted to public relations. She posted a throwback photo of us as kids, captioned, "No matter what happens, you'll always be my sister. I'll be here when you stop being angry." Comments poured in, half sympathy, half vague advice from people who like the sound of their own decency. I didn't screenshot it. I didn't care. 2 days later, a courier knocked. We were served. Amber had filed a civil complaint, emotional distress, and wrongful withholding of financial support, claiming I'd promised her lifetime help. No attorney's letterhead. Formatting that would make a paralegal cry. But the entitlement had put on a suit and walked itself to the clerk's window. She truly believed I owed her a salary for existing. That night, Grandma called. She'd stayed neutral, Switzerland in a floral blouse, until now. "I won't tell you what to do," she said, "but you deserve to be done raising everyone else." "I'm about to be a mother," I said. "That's the only job I'm taking." She was quiet for a long time. "I hope they realize what they've lost," she said finally. "I don't think they will." For the first time, I didn't argue. I was too busy building a life where losing me had consequences. The lawsuit didn't scare me. It insulted me. Amber's complaint looked like something she'd typed half asleep after a YouTube tutorial on how to sue people. But even bad paperwork has weight when it's delivered by someone who once shared your baby photos. I scanned it once, handed it to Tyler, and said, "Frame it. Proof of evolution, from parasite to plaintiff." He smiled, small and sharp. "We'll keep it in the folder." That folder, our evidence file, had grown thicker than a wedding album. The irony wasn't lost on me. My family had spent years calling me dramatic, yet here I was with the receipts, literally. Tyler stapled Amber's lawsuit behind Dad's attempted loan fraud, then slid the folder back into the safe. "Now," he said, "let's write the ending before they try to." The days that followed moved strangely. There was no shouting, no new threats, just silence that felt like plotting. I knew them too well to mistake quiet for peace. I went to my doctor's appointment alone that Thursday. Tyler was stuck in a meeting, and I didn't want to make him cancel again. The waiting room smelled like sanitizer and oranges. A nurse checked my blood pressure and said softly, "Stress can sneak up on you, you know." I almost laughed. If only she knew what sneak looked like in my world. It didn't sneak. It stormed the gates wearing family ties. That evening, the phone rang again. Unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. Mom's voice poured through a minute later, syrupy and rehearsed. "I don't know what your father was thinking. Please don't punish me for his mistakes. We just wanted to help." Not sorry. Not once. Just wanted to help. I deleted the message without listening to the rest. The sound of her voice still lived in too many places. My head, my inbox, the corners of old voicemails labeled "Happy Birthday," that somehow always turned into subtle guilt trips. 2 nights later, the storm arrived in person. A delivery truck idled outside. Tyler opened the door before I could stop him. A man in a courier jacket held out an envelope, thick and official. "Service papers," he said. "For me?" I asked. He nodded. "From Amber Ronan." Tyler thanked him, shut the door, and turned the lock. "They're escalating," he said quietly. I tore the envelope open. Inside, photocopied screenshots of text messages, half cut off, half fake. A judge wouldn't last 5 minutes before laughing this out of court. Still, the edges of the pages trembled in my hands. Tyler saw it and took the papers gently. "Let me," he said. "You don't have to touch their mess anymore." That was the moment I decided he would handle the rest. I was done. The next morning, while I was slicing apples, I felt the first cramp. Not the polite kind that hints, the kind that announces. I froze mid-motion, knife halfway through the fruit, breath caught somewhere between panic and recognition. "Ty," I called. He was upstairs but heard the shift in my voice. "How far apart?" he asked from the doorway, calm but already grabbing the hospital bag. 7 minutes, I said, my voice smaller than I expected. 10 minutes later, we were on the highway, dashboard clock glowing blue, rain streaking the windshield. He drove steady, one hand on the wheel, the other finding mine between contractions. Neither of us spoke much. The silence wasn't fear, it was focus, the kind that fills a room when something irreversible begins. The hospital lights were too white, the air too clean. Nurses moved like a practice dance. Monitors beeped in time with my heartbeat. Tyler stayed beside me, a quiet anchor. Hours blurred. The pain was a language, primal and endless. Somewhere in the middle of it, I realized the only people I wanted in this room were already here. The only family that mattered was the one we were creating, heartbeat by heartbeat. At 4:17 a.m., our son arrived. He didn't cry right away, just looked at us with an expression I can't describe, like he was judging whether we deserved him. Then came the wail, high and perfect, slicing through the sterile air. They placed him on my chest, skin warm, tiny heart racing against mine. It wasn't cinematic, it was real, messy, beautiful, terrifying. Tyler whispered, "He's here," like he couldn't quite believe it. And just like that, every fight, every email, every name on a ledger vanished into something smaller than this single moment. When dawn crept through the blinds, Tyler was asleep in the recliner, hand resting on the edge of the crib. The baby, our baby, slept beside me, breath soft and even. I checked my phone out of habit. 2 missed calls from an unknown number. I ignored them. At 10:30, someone knocked. A nurse peeked in. "You have a visitor," she whispered. I frowned. We're not expecting anyone. But when she stepped aside, I saw her. Amber. She didn't look like the sister I remembered. No makeup, hair pulled back, clothes wrinkled, plain. No camera in her hand, no performance in her posture. Just a person who'd run out of acts. She lingered by the door, clutching the strap of her purse like it was armor. "I'm not here to fight," she said softly. I heard you had him." I said nothing. The air between us was heavy with everything we hadn't said and all the things that had already been said too many times. She glanced toward the crib, but didn't step closer. "I needed to see you, needed to see him." Her eyes were wet, but not desperate. "I was awful to you, Ellie. I believed them. I believed I was owed because that's what they taught me. I don't know who I am without that." The words didn't feel like manipulation this time. They felt like surrender. "You're a good mom," she said. "I can see that." I swallowed the lump in my throat. "Why now?" "Because he deserves better than what we grew up in," she whispered. She stayed maybe 5 minutes. Never reached for the baby, never asked, just looked. Before leaving, she said quietly, "He's lucky to have you." When she walked out, I didn't stop her. Tyler came back 10 minutes later with coffee and 2 granola bars. "Everything okay?" I nodded. Amber was here. He didn't flinch. "Do you want her around?" I looked at our son, asleep in his bassinet, fingers curled like he was already holding on to the world. "Maybe someday," I said, "but not yet." Mom and Dad never showed. No flowers, no calls, nothing. And for the first time, that silence didn't sting. It soothed. It meant freedom. When we were discharged 2 days later, the sky outside the hospital was pale blue, the kind that looks freshly washed. Tyler buckled the car seat with surgeon precision while I stood beside the door, clutching the handle like it was a bridge to something new. He looked up. "Ready?" I nodded. Finally. Back home, the nursery smelled like paint and lavender. The locks were new. The accounts were clean. Every trace of them. Every login, every favor, every obligation was gone. Tyler set the carrier down and whispered, "Welcome home, little man." I ran my hand along the crib rail, feeling the grain of wood against my fingertips. This house, this life, it was ours now. For the first time in years, I didn't feel watched. I didn't feel owned. I didn't feel like someone's emergency exit. I sat on the edge of the bed and watched my son sleep. He looked peaceful, untouched by any of it, and I thought, this is what it means to start over. No apologies, no reconciliations, just space where a family used to be and a new one growing quietly in its place. That night, as Tyler turned off the lights, he glanced at me. "You're thinking again." "I'm just grateful," I said, "and tired." He smiled. "That's parenting." I laughed softly. "Feels better than surviving." He leaned over and kissed my forehead. "That's because it is." Outside, the wind moved through the trees. Inside, the baby's steady breathing filled the dark. Karma didn't need an audience. It had already done its work. And the only sound left in the house was peace.